Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with season 12, episode 21 of our weekly Q&A thing. It is how you're consuming it. It is the medium that you are watching or listening to it right now.
It is what it is, or as Papa would say, I am what I am.
Yeah. This season is the season of favorite teams, new and old. So every week we're going through and what you're seeing is a team that we love. And what we talk about with you is why we love it before we get into questions or not, I guess. We just sort of yap. This is a very, as we mentioned recently, it's a very self-indulgent sort of thing. And the fact that people are listening at all is cool, but kind of less necessary than us just yapping on about whatever it is that we feel like we want to.
So there's a couple things before I even get into the team specifically is... I really thought I would run out of favorite teams. I thought I had run out of favorite teams when, doesn't Suicide Squad Deadshot show up and I realize, oh, I love this Suicide Squad team. I can't believe I almost forgot about this team. The star is really Suicide Squad Harley Quinn with a strong assist from Suicide Squad Joker. Mm-hmm. And I want to point out something that's going to come in another minute and a half, which is funny to me if you're paying attention, is that in the middle of her super, the fight ends. Mm-hmm. It just switches over to, you don't get to see the fight finish. It just switches over to the, hey, here's your points and stuff. Fight is over. And I think it's totally wild to me. And I'm going to get into the reason why it happened. But when I thought about it, I thought, oh, and then I reproduced it. And you'll see that in the second set of Ultimate Ladders, which should show up sometime around the first fight of that, which should show up sometime around 18 minutes. And the key really is Wally West, who is the motivation for doing a super, so we don't waste a bunch of time doing specials over and over. I mean, sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes he just doesn't dodge. Mm-hmm. A lot of times he does. So, about this team. So we've talked before about how powerful a team can be with Suicide Squad, Harley Quinn, and Suicide Squad Joker. It could be this Joker, it could be the other Suicide Squad Joker, the one that we don't like, Unhinged. This one is better because his passive means he's got a bit more of a damage stat. So Suicide Squad, because either of them work, but Suicide Squad, Harley Quinn. I was in such a rush to say everything. Leverages her special 2 to use Suicide Squad Joker to do a huge amount of damage on her special 2. Way more than her bomb, which is unblockable. And you can see lots of examples of this in our playlist of Suicide Squad teams. This particular iteration is the one I feel like I like the best. Deadshot is in the first slot. He's got Astro Harness, Claw of Horus, and Razzle Glow Scimitar. So, Invulnerability, Shatter Gears, Bar of Power. Joker's got Fourth World Godly Mace, and he's got a good kind of synergy on his special 2 because it's splash 15% on special 2, 25% damage boost on special 2, and 30% chance of power drain on special 2. He's got Demon Blade, which despite being a 2.5-star gear, is the only gear, I believe, that has both a crit chance increase and a damage boost to special 2. Nothing else does. It's usually one or the other. So despite being only a 2.5-star gear, spectacular. And Kryptonian Rifle, which is 18% damage boost on special 1 and 30% crit chance on special 2. The key part is the crit chance. To get his overall crit chance, 30 plus the augmented 50 to get him to 100% crit chance to maximize his special 2 damage. You'll see why later. I mean, if you've seen us do these teams, you sort of already know reasons, but I love going over this because every time I find something a little bit new. Harley Quinn's got Tantu Totem Master's Death card and Enchantress Companion card. And the biggest problem I have with this team is not hitting the right attack when all the different options cycle through when you do a special 2. And because this Suicide Squad Harley Quinn is special for a lot of reasons. She has an extra possible item, which is power for everybody, but she's also got the ability that if Suicide Squad Joker is on her team, either of them, and not knocked out, the Joker card does not boost damage. Joker comes in and does an attack. Mm-hmm. And the third special thing she's got is if Suicide Squad Deadshot is on her team, her unblockable explosive does splash damage. They call it C4 or something. And yeah, they're all fine. But really, the what makes her amazing is that Suicide Squad Joker attack.
Yeah.
The extra item is bad. Having the power for everybody, you feel like it's good, but it means that she cycles through bomb, flower. So bomb is the damage, flower is healing, Joker is the damage, and then power. And because she's got an extra item, she cycles through everything faster.
Yeah. They don't just make it take longer for the cycle. The cycle feels like it takes about the same amount of time, and it does it just a little bit faster.
Now, it's not a huge problem because of those 4 items. Joker's what you want. Flower and power don't do damage, so you get power back with Tentu Totem.
Yeah, without Tentu Totem, it would be really bad. But with Tentu Totem, you kind of don't care.
Yeah, bomb is that 25% chance of a real weak link, because if you do the bomb, you do damage, you don't get power back. So whatever item she starts with is what she finishes with. So at the beginning, there's a 1 in 4 chance that you don't actually need to pick if the first item is Joker. So sometimes it's easier to play it safe than to try to do it fast. So what makes her shine even brighter is that her 3rd gear is Enchantress Companion card. The difficulty you have using her as your main damage dealer is that...
So when you're saying the one that she finishes with, you mean if you time out, like if you just wait and sit on it.
Yeah, exactly. So the biggest sort of challenge that an opponent can give her is that when that character in front of her revives, the revive means that the opponent isn't knocked out and Harley Quinn doesn't get her power back with Tentu Totem, meaning she needs to tag out. And Enchantress really solves this problem because according to the wiki, each the Suicide Squad team member adds an extra skull. So instead of doing 3 skulls that each do damage equal to 10% of what you did with your special, a full team of Suicide Squad characters will send 6 skulls, each doing 10%. And because...
And a 60% of your damage is pretty high.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think it looks like it's not crit, so it feels like it's less, but it's still significant.
Yeah.
Because the Enchantress skulls act exactly like disabling specials temporarily. Disable specials, disable supers while the skulls are flying in. As long as I think they're not invulnerable. So we're not vulnerable to supers or unblockable specials like we normally would be right after we've done our special 2.
Yeah.
You see the beauty of this and how her fights go when everything is perfect, right? She tags in. We do a swipe combo. Make sure we get her bar power because, Master's Death card gives us a freebie right at the beginning. Joker comes in and knocks out the opponent. Harley Quinn gets her power back and does another special 2 as the next opponent tags in. And that delay in Harley Quinn's special 2 means the skulls come in before her second special 2 does the damage. And the 6 skulls doing 60% of the special 2 damage are enough to knock out the next character. And then the second special 2 finishes with Joker, who is conveniently just tagged in.
Yeah.
So like I said, you can start comboing and tagging with Harley Quinn to get your bar power. And here's the kicker, right? You don't need to worry about the first opponent having any power unless they have Astro Harness. No Astro Harness means you get a free basic damage combo. You could use Deadshot to beat up the opponent until Deadshot's invulnerability from Astro Harness wears off. You're not getting value for the invulnerability anyways, but it does waste a bit of time, so that's why we usually don't do it.
Yeah.
And so we just do that. And because her special 2 with Joker is completely ranged, you don't care. You don't care if they get up. You don't care if they've got knocked back. You just, either you can start it right away as soon as you finish your combo, or you can wait a little bit if you think you're going to need to tag out against somebody who's going to revive. And so that extends the time that you're already on the screen to get to the tag out time faster, right? And the wonderful thing about this is Joker does the same amount of damage whether it's blocked or not. You cannot block his damage. Only gear or passive modifiers will change the damage that he gives to the opponent. So you don't need to time it either. Like, not only do you not have to worry about range, you don't have to time it right so that they're not blocking.
You just need to get the actual Joker ability on the special.
Right. And the cool thing is gear and passive are both relevant on both sides. They're relevant for your Joker to modify the damage, and they're relevant for the opponent for how much damage they're going to take. In our case, Joker has maxed crit chance and crit chance modifiers to give him a 100% crit chance on special 2. Timing doesn't matter. It just, not in the fight. The timing really only matters for the special 2 as it rotates. So the funny exception to this is Red Sun Green Lantern, whose passive is that he doesn't get stunned. Special damage is reduced by 20%. And he can't take crit damage, I think, right?
Yeah.
So what's wild is he still takes crit damage.
For some reason.
It's split, right? So the damage is reduced. There's a fight in here, I think, where our Joker normally gives 160-something thousand damage, and it's only 130 against Red Sun Green Lantern. Mm-hmm. But it's still crit. So that's wild.
Yeah, it seems whatever in the code, the fact that you're bringing somebody in for the special and that it's not the person in front of them, that it doesn't disable their crit for whatever reason.
Right. And you might notice something funny about the team loadout is that normally we don't like having Astro Harness on our card in the first slot. It feels like it's a waste of invulnerability, and most of the time it is, because you get that invulnerability as soon as they're on the screen. It's there, and you don't get to control when it happens because, sometimes you want to be able to time it so that you avoid a super, for example.
Yeah.
But not with this team, and not with this gear loadout. Harley Quinn can do enough damage to one-hit knock out most opponents. So she can handle Astro Harness as soon as the first invulnerability is finished. She doesn't need to do anything else. We just need to wait it out. So Deadshot, in the first slot, with Astro Harness himself, is ready to handle any opponent in the opponent's first slot that has Astro Harness. Mm-hmm. And in almost all other fights, total waste.
Yeah, you just tag in, hit your specials, and then it's over.
Right. But it's worth wasting it in all those other situations just to handle this specific scenario. Opponent with Astro Harness in first slot, because Harley Quinn is really just that powerful.
Yeah, because it's a waste, but it's a waste of something you don't need. Because in the other fights, if you're swapping it out, it's because you're never going to use it.
Right. It also makes Deadshot tougher. So if there's an entry hazard like Gaslight Batman, which you might be seeing in some of these fights, we just wait until until Gaslight Batman gets knocked out or stunned before tagging in Harley Quinn. Mm-hmm. It's also very useful against an Arkham team that has Arkham Knight Batgirl, where we can use Deadshot until we get Arkham Knight Batgirl tagging in to save the opponent. Or maybe even not. Maybe it's just that she's just tagging in because we're taking so long. But when she saves her opponent, Deadshot, because he's decently hardy and decently powerful, then he can survive her. If he gets stunned by Arkham Knight Batgirl with Astro Harness, he gets to survive. Mm-hmm. And even if he doesn't, the real key part is actually having Harley Quinn and Joker. Those are the sort of two main parts of this team. Yeah. So, and the funny thing that we've mentioned a bunch of times that it still gets me is that her Special 2 animation is totally wild. Oh, I should mention too that it sometimes protects her a little bit from tag and effect. Not always. Sometimes it's protected her from Rebirth Raven stealing. The Skulls don't. But sometimes because of the timing, it protects from Rebirth Raven stealing our power, and sometimes it doesn't. I'm not really sure about why.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like there's any kind of time because it's really just the one hit. So, all right. So Harley Quinn's Special 2, you're using her power. Joker comes in. He does a Special 1 animation.
Yeah, where he pulls out his gun and pow.
Right. But it's his Special 2 modifiers that affect the amount of damage. And we've figured this out through extensive testing. And here's the other funny thing, or a couple other funny things. Harley Quinn gets credit for damage done by Joker if the opponent is not knocked out. Mm-hmm. But in most cases, the opponent is knocked out, and Joker gets credit if the opponent is knocked out.
Yeah.
So
it's weird.
Well, and it gives you really funny stats where Joker spends 0 time in the fight because he's in our second slot.
Yeah. And
he'll do like 500,000 damage.
He'll do all the damage in the fight, basically.
Well, almost, because
the skulls.
Yeah. Harley Quinn gets credit for the skulls.
Yeah.
So it's funny.
We could give him credit for all the damage in the fight without the Enchantress gear.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Which would be a sillier card.
Yeah, but it's wild to me. Like, it's funny to me that there's just so many good, because everybody always asks, what are good teams? What are good teams? And we've done this full season now of 21, I think, really great teams. A lot of different reasons, but they're really great. There's probably more that other people like to use in different ways, because I think you get into habits, right, mm-hmm. when you play. And it's funny to me that after 20 weeks, I was thinking, now I'm done. I haven't had, and all of a sudden, we get a reminder, wow, this
bolt of inspiration.
Yeah, and it was because Deadshot is the challenge this week.
Yeah, so there we go. moving on to the comments, we have 2 comments from Renzo Pasquale, and they say, guys, this is legit. This is still working from Android 3.5 version. Tried this at November 25th, 2024 on the video resetting the challenge. And he also commented, guys, and then in all caps, this is legit. It is still working 2024, November 25th, 2024. And then edit on Android in version 3.5 on the resetting breakthrough.
And I absolutely love comments for the exact obvious reason that we've got a third party confirming that it works. But on top of that, there's an underlying principle I love about this is that, so before we started making videos, content creators and the people who consume their content, I always felt like there was that sort of imbalance in the relationship. And so content creators are putting out this content, fans are consuming it. Okay, that's where the relationship ends. No, in this case, Renzo is doing exactly the best thing that they can do, which is contributing, not acknowledgement, but you know what I mean, like confirmation.
They're trying to give useful information. What I like is
useful information
that the edit, right, on Android in version 3.5. So they're trying to say, this is working for me. These are my material circumstances, right?
Yeah.
It is a little nice. We say thank you at the end of the videos for supporting however you do, right? And this is one of the ways. I don't pretend to understand how much commenting matters, and it's not like we are desperate for every comment and we're trying to squeeze every last view out of stuff.
Well, we do need comments for this Q&A mostly.
Yeah, but it's nice for him to say, oh, well, because I think the other thing too is that most of the time it's kind of like customer service, right?
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, we're not exactly customer facing, but when we're giving people information and specifically a technique that they go and use themselves, a lot of time it boils down to sort of a customer service relationship where they come back and they say, this isn't working. You guys gave bad instructions because this wasn't working. And then we, especially more back in the day when there was more glitches coming through on a more regular basis, and it was stuff that people really wanted to do as soon as it came out and do a lot of, There was times where we would post a new glitch and we'd be getting like a new comment like every like 15 seconds or something for like a couple hours, right?
Right.
And a lot of them would be like, this doesn't work. It's not working. It's patched. It's fixed. Something, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Or people go, is this patched? Or all that stuff. So you get very few comments because when something goes right, they watch the video, they do it, and it works. And they go, okay, cool, nice. I'm glad I saw this video, right? And you go about your day. And to be fair, that is how I interact with like all the content, right?
Yeah.
There's videos that like I quote to my friends. There's videos that, I think about that Paul Blart, that video where they were talking about Paul Blart.
How it's the best movie because of how many hours it takes out of their life.
Yeah, they're like, I loved it. It was like this long. And they're like, well, that's like saying watching Paul Blart like 3 times in a row is better than like watching Citizen Kane. And he was like, no, that's like saying watching Paul Blart 6 times in a row is like better than Citizen Kane, the first 2 Godfather movies, and whatever else. He's like, I love Paul Blart, right?
Yeah.
I never commented on that video, right? The things that influence and impact me, I very rarely am doing anything other than giving it my attention, right?
Right.
At the most, I'll send other people, to watch it and another extra couple of views, right?
Yeah.
And so you do have these sort of interesting relationships with the content that you watch, and it's a lot more consumptive than reciprocal, right?
Right.
So it is interesting just to think about that, and it is nice, right?
Yeah, I think
this
so.
This person is clearly trying to provide useful information to the people who come here after him.
In the way that they
after
can.
them, I should say, yeah.
It's boosting the signal.
Yeah.
I totally appreciate that. I think it's a cool thing to do, and I think it is a great way to contribute that you can for where you are for your position.
I also just think relatively it is nicer, again, for it to reach that threshold of you being willing to comment, not just because it's inconvenient or you're mad, right? I think, we talked a while ago, I don't remember how many episodes ago, about like thinking about the ways that you could have a space that encourages more positive discussion.
Yeah.
And I think that the natural inclination for when you are giving people tip or a hack or whatever, you're providing customer service, right?
Yeah.
There are definitely communities where people like practice gratitude, but I think the default state for a lot of people is like, I tried it and it was bad, right? And the thing that like sort of gets you over that hump of inaction is negative feelings often, or strong feelings of some kind, right?
Right.
And so just in terms of again, I'm not trying to make this bigger than it is. It's just a guy leaving comments saying, this still works, right? But for what it's worth, I think that instinct is a much more positive one. And that's the kind of thing that you do want to cultivate, which is people who are willing to try to be helpful. It's a pro-social action, right?
Yeah.
To some extent.
That's a good term. I like that, pro-social.
And that's, not always super common for how the internet works, right? Pro-sociality is something that's a little bit harder to establish on the internet. So it's kind of just a little nice.
And I think it's also cool because it reminds me of the last week, I think, with the ramen box, where somebody's actually still finding stuff that's pretty old and still getting value out of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Love it.
Yeah, okay. So the next comment comes from, I don't know, is it Ariste Jada?
Tejada is a common, I think, Hispanic name. Tejada.
Oh, so Aries Tejada?
Eris
Tejada 2053.
Let us know. I'm always interested in this kind of stuff. Sometimes it's fun to try to parse out the root of a language to figure out the pronunciation conventions.
Yeah. And they say, y'all didn't mention if the Batman v Superman bundle is worth it. I don't have Dawn of Justice Batman, let alone the special gears. Is it worth it to buy one?
So I answered this in a little bit sort of passing, but I thought it was worthwhile mentioning to a bigger crowd, right? Like, a lot of the packs are expensive for what they are. I think even if we don't get any further updates, this is a free game. It's a good game. And giving back to not just the developers, but I guess the owners.
Yeah, because the developers aren't really getting anything out of it.
Yeah, but the intellectual property, I think I don't mind that for the amount of play that I've gotten out of it. And there are worse things to buy than stuff that you can't get otherwise. Yeah. My personal preference is for energy recharges. But Dawn of Justice Batman is a locked character. I don't know that he's available in any other way now except with money.
Yeah.
And even when he was first available, the way you got him was through a random drop in his special gold pack.
Yeah, so the value of a character, when you can only get them through money and you're not unlocking them in your store, the problem is that the value is much lower because you need to think about not just the cost of getting any of them, you need to think about the cost of getting enough of them that you want to use them. So if you just want to have it in your collection from that perspective, then one copy, if you really care and there's no other way of getting them, then it is more valuable, right? But if you're talking about, how much is it worth as a thing to buy, it's sort of like you're talking about not buying them in a usable state. You're talking about buying like the 10%, 15%, 20% of the way to getting them elited up to powerful enough that you actually will use them with your other teams.
Now, I will say, I can't remember if he was one of the characters, if Dawn of Justice Batman was one of the characters that once you've got the first copy, it unlocks the possibility of getting them in certain packs, like the Nth Metal packs.
That's a good point, but I
can't
don't
remember.
know.
I know for sure Arkham Knight Batman is. I can't remember if Dawn of Justice is. But aside from that, so if we leave that out of the equation, I think the other consideration is he fun to play with? Is he a good character? Is he effective? He used to be more effective, right? Before Tantu Totem, where his chance of dodging special was pretty powerful, right? You waste the opponent's power bars.
Yeah.
And what made him even better than the original example of dodging specials, I think, was Mother Box. Mm-hmm. Maybe not Mother Box. Might have been Wally West even. But Mother Box, you just dodge and nothing happens. Wally West and Dawn of Justice Batman both have an effect. If you don't dodge or you don't block when he dodges, Dawn of Justice Batman comes in and can do a little bit of damage and stun you. Hugely effective. And Wally West comes in and whacks you. Yeah. Both pretty good. I mean, Wally West still whacks you anyways, and you do a significant amount of damage. But he's not bad. His ability is mainly defensive, and if you want to leave him on defense in multiplayer, I think he's pretty good. But as something that happens every once in a while, a defensive effect that happens every once in a while, I don't find him as useful as other Batman.
Yeah.
So whether it's worth it to buy, I mean, it's the original comment I wrote was, it's easy to say when something's not worth it.
Yeah.
This, when you get something that you can't get otherwise, comes closer to being almost worth it.
Yeah, and I think the last thing is a lot more subjective, which is like, how much disposable income do you have?
Right.
Because I think on a practical level, the amount that it changes your enjoyment of the game, for me, for any one thing that you can buy from a pack is pretty marginal. And so having, you know, that extra 25 Canadian, there's a lot of indie games that are that price or less money. There's a lot of AAA games that go on sale for that price or less money, right? For the amount that it impacts my experience, I would say the vast majority of the time, I would rather spend my money on something else, just in terms of like, even if I'm just spending the money on like an entertainment thing, right? For myself, than something in this game. But it really depends, right? If having something new like that is going to really make you, you know, excited and feel cool, and you think it's going to provide that much value, you know, I think there's the like more objective metrics of like how good it is, how hard is it to get otherwise. And then there's that very, very subjective thing about how much money do you have and how much value does this have to you. And so for me, you know, outside of supporting the game, and for us it's a little bit different because, you know, our whole channel, we've gotten so much value out of this game separate from the value of the game itself that I'm way more enthusiastic about, you know, spending money to support it. Than I would say I would if I just played it. And so to me, outside of supporting the devs, most of the other purchases in it have like not enough value to justify it. But that's where, very hard to quantify.
And then there's the internal consistency where you rank the different kinds of packs. So there's certain packs that are more value, certain packs are really bad value. This is not one of the bad value packs. The really bad value packs are the early access for a challenge that's coming next week, where you will get the card when you complete the challenge, and you will unlock it in the store, and it will cost you no monies. Those are, I think, objectively the worst ones, because you're going to have an opportunity. These at least have some sort of scarcity to improve the value.
I will say, you know, one thing that has been in the discussion more because it got nominated for Game of the Year at the Game Awards is the game Balatro.
Don't know it.
And I will say that these packs are all more expensive than Balatro. Balatro is an exceptional game. It's on your phone. They should not have put it on your phone, not because I don't think it belongs there, but because I think it's the perfect way to play it. And like, you can sink so much time into it. Like, it's one of those games. I'm not by any means the earliest adopter of Balatro. You know, I saw Northern Lion play it first. So I've been playing it since the demo, though. Really exceptional game. Everything I've seen from the dev has made me think that he seems like a cool guy. Really a lot of fun if you like roguelikes at all, if you like mobile games that you're here for. So if we're just talking about, again, that comparison point, you know, for me personally, if I had not bought and tried Balatro yet, I would say no pack, no purchasable item in Injustice is as much bang for your buck as Balatro is.
Nice.
So that's sort of a half recommendation, half what's going on. I played it for like probably not 30 hours on the computer, just because there would have been time that I walked away from it with it open. But Steam says I played it for about 30 hours on Steam. I played the demo for a good amount of time. And I played a bunch on my phone. So like I put a more time than I should have into Balatro. But I will say that, yeah, it's really, really good. So this is kind of moving a little bit away from that, but that's just my comparison point is, you know, all of these packs cost more than Balatro. None of these packs would bring more joy or entertainment value to my life than Balatro. If we're talking on a pure Paul Blart level, Balatro has unmatched value. Just because you can put so much time into it if you really want to. And that's fair. It's a great game.
That's fair.
Yeah. And also for what it's worth. I know some people played and bounce off of it, but what's really funny is it got nominated for Game of the Year alongside some like big AAA games, right? And so a bunch of people are like, oh, you know, all these games, you know, that are huge, that are big tempos that cost like millions of dollars to make, and then like this poker game, you know, why are people into it? So there's, what's funny has been a lot of people saying like, I don't understand how Balatro could possibly be a nominee for Game of the Year, so I'm going to check it out and play it, and then they'll like, you know, tweet again about it like a day later being like, I get it, but I've played it for like 10 hours now.
That's hilarious.
And for what it's worth, again, some people do bounce off of it, but nobody who I've ever talked to who's played it or who I have like told to get it has ever played it and been like, I didn't really like it. It's had a 100% hit rate with everybody I've recommended it to so far.
Right.
Yeah. So anyways, maybe
I would like to do this next one just because I feel like if we don't get to it, it'll end up getting, because we've got a longer list of questions now that have just kept on getting shoved further and further back that I do eventually want
Yeah,
to
like
get to.
Dakarindoro's account update, because we answered that a while ago, and they came back and talked more about how they've been going, and we should get to that eventually. We always just barely not get to it, but anyways, Sonic Nicholas 1995 says, we'll get to you next time or soon. Sonic Nicholas says, are there any characters that belong to a team that enjoy using outside of their respective teams, excluding both Arkham Batman, Arkham Origins and Arkham Knight, Arkham Deathstroke, Rebirth Jessica Cruz, or Black as Night Martian Manhunter? I'm also excluding Red Sun Superman, Red Sun Wonder Woman, Red Sun Deathstroke, Red Sun Grundy, Arkham Harley Quinn for obvious reasons. For me, I enjoy using Red Sun Green Lantern outside a Red Sun team.
Yeah. Okay. So it's an interesting question because I think some of it might be answered when you look at the teams that we've got. Right? So the number of times that we use Rebirth Raven, Rebirth Raven and Hawkgirl. So here's the other interesting part. Do you count team or characters that don't have a universe? Like Batgirl Prime is great. Mm-hmm. Hawkgirl Prime is great. Wonder Woman 600.
I think you exclude those because they don't belong in a team, right? They don't have a natural built-in team.
So Rebirth Raven is in a universe in name only. The amount of synergy you get from all the different Rebirth characters is so low. There's some, it's not zero, but it's so low that it feels like it's almost like a cheating kind of answer.
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot of benefit to putting her on another team, but she's so good because you see her on so many teams. Because she's a good way to really make almost anybody else shine because she's got good defensive, offensive potential to support whoever else you want, however else you want to gear them. She doesn't need a bunch of her own gear to make her great. But the other answer, so you can go through all that and you can see that. But the other answer that I think will not seem so obvious that I want to bring up is Flashpoint Batman. Flashpoint Batman has a game-changing passive.
Yeah.
Like, he has a passive that on his own, I guess, if we're going to say that, I hadn't thought of this until just this moment, but Batman Ninja Catwoman does too.
Yeah.
Where they both can boost their basic damage so high. And special damage too, but Batman has awful specials.
Yeah.
They both can boost their basic damage so high that they are probably the only two characters that on their own I would still be willing to use as your main damage dealer in this world.
In a basic damage dealer, yeah.
Yeah. And the wild thing is, though, what makes him so interesting is, on a Flashpoint team, he is not the best character. Mm-hmm. He is not the best Flashpoint character on a Flashpoint team.
Yeah.
Deathstroke is.
But if he wasn't on the team, it would be way worse.
And he was on the team, yeah, for sure, it would be way worse. And on his own, he is the best Flashpoint character.
Yeah.
It's wild. So, to me, it reminds me because we recently had the Major League Baseball awards announced, right? The end of season stuff. And it's the same argument that they make where sometimes, actually on NBA too, where they talk about the MVP and because they don't define properly who should get the MVP, like it's not really as clear. So people use different criteria. And sometimes people get votes for MVP. And it's funny the way the team is made up and it's come up where people who are not even the best player on their own team will get votes for MVP.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me because it's very much like this. It's wild to me that and people let this because Flashpoint Batman is the one that has the passive that makes the Flashpoint team so good.
Yeah.
I think people get distracted by the fact on the Flashpoint team he's not the best character because everybody benefits from his passive. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't necessarily benefit from anybody else's passive. So, and I've always made the case that Flashpoint Deathstroke is S tier. He is the best because he gets so much benefit from the other Flashpoint guys.
Yeah.
That it's easy to lose sight of fact, for me at least, that Flashpoint Batman is one of the best characters that I love playing outside his own team. Mm-hmm. Outside his own team universe.
Yeah. So there we go. Good stuff. I think that probably does it for this week. Mm-hmm. So to finish up, we'd like to give a huge thank you to our patrons on Patreon. That is I went into our old list. That's everybody who supported us ever. I would still like to thank people who supported us at any given time, but the people who we are supporting at this point is Michael Devries, Irvin, Ruiz, Hoshi 127, Nora Klimek, who are supporting us on the credited level. And we'd also like to give a huge thanks to anybody who's watched to this point, who's supporting us however you are supporting us, even if you aren't giving us money every month. We still appreciate you, just maybe a little less.
We love you all.
Yeah, well, I don't know, love's a strong word.
That's true.
You can say
I
that.
like you all.
Yeah,
I appreciate you all. I emaciate you.
If you've made it all the way to the end of this, I think there's some amount of positive feeling that I have towards you, even if as an individual I don't know. I only know if you comment. I can only sort of put a name to a name if you actually comment. Otherwise, you're just a number. But you don't have to feel no specific obligation to comment. I think it helps recommend us to people, but like we've mentioned before, it's marginal, and that's not what we're in it for. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Komoda.